So the past decade obviously has seen the scaling of technology such as wind and solar and crucial areas such as artificial intelligence and battery storage. But what's coming next? What are the transformational technologies that will have a significant impact in the coming years? So our next speaker is a hacker, inventor, and technology futurist with over 70 patents to his name. He's built spaceships at Blue Origin for Jeff Bezos, worked on the world's smallest PC and 3D printers at MakerBot, and helped start Intellectual Ventures Lab with Nathan Myhrvold, with a portfolio that included a nuclear reactor powered by nuclear waste. Please welcome Pablos Holman.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Hi, you guys. I have so many things to share, so let's just get started. Years ago, I got to work on this project. The idea, people think, is just like billionaires with their big swinging rockets, but really what this is a vision for trillions of humans thriving in space, which sounds insane, but in the best case scenario, Earth is gonna melt into the sun someday. So we're gonna need like a plan B or like a planet B, right? And to do that would still start, even if it takes thousands and thousands of years, a project like that would still begin with one small step, right? And most of us can't do that. Most of us are busy just like trying to pay rent and get our kids into college. But occasionally you get someone who's free of those kinds of concerns and able to think about generations yet to come. And it's pretty rare, it's sadly rare. But what I learned from working on that project is that thinking on longer time horizons can really help you to get a sense of optimism that we can actually make the future more awesome. And so I want to talk about that a little bit, but to sort of orient ourselves, see if you can find yourself on this chart. This is the history of humans here on planet Earth. Not very many of us, about 160,000 years ago, you get the first Homo sapiens, and then it's just millions, maybe a couple million, and not until the last 200 years did we hit that hockey stick growth curve and go from millions to billions almost overnight. It's insane to think about, but that curve is what defines everything we're experiencing in the world today, right? And along the way, we invented technologies that helped us partially, if not wholly, solve some of the hard technical problems that kept humans from thriving, right? How do you feed all those people? Give them jobs and homes, those things. Well, if there's one thing all these extra humans are good for, it's making more problems. So our job is to figure out how are we going to invent new technologies that help us keep these people thriving. 8 billion people, no additional planets, right? That's the challenge for us. And honestly, we don't know if it's possible. It's never been done before as far as we know. We're trying to figure it out. So all of us, we are all made of stars. This is not like just song lyrics. It's actually true. We're all made of this star, the sun. All the energy in the world, all of not just the solar energy, but also the wind, also the coal, also the oil, also the gas, also the photosynthesis, and even the Red Bull. All of it comes from this sun, right? And the interesting thing is, when you look around the world, the average human on Earth gets about as much of that energy as one toaster running 24/7, right? So that's all your heating, cooling, travel, food, everything rolled in, one toaster. Where I come from, we get 8 bonus toasters, which is pretty awesome, I gotta tell you. Europeans were getting by on about 5 to 6 toasters until recently. Now they're down to like 4 to 5, not because they want to, just because they can't get access to more energy, right? To get those averages, 3 billion people live on less than one toaster. Right? That's how averages work. So what this means to me is that energy demand is 10x global energy production. Think about that for a minute. When you see people from the energy sector, especially renewables, show you a demand curve, what does it look like? Add a few percent a year for growth. No. That's not energy demand. Energy demand is every human on Earth wants to live like an American. They want that living standard. And far be it from us to determine that they shouldn't get it. So this sounds crazy, I know. But guess what? We've done it before. Over the last century, we 10x global energy production. Right? Now we did it by burning more coal, burning more oil, burning more gas. We obviously don't want to 10x those things, right? We learned our lesson. Can only do so much damage before you have to admit maybe something's going wrong. So we need to figure out how we're going to do it with these little slivers at the top. That's where we are right now. This is all the metals mined last year in the world. It's kind of a visual comparison. All of it pales compared to iron. That's how much iron we mine, not just last year, every year. But look at this. Look at this little pile. That one little pile, uranium, has enough energy to power everything in the entire planet, all the people, at an American living standard. That's how much energy is in there. Uranium is so energy dense, if you had a beer can full of it, first of all, it'd be quite heavy. I call it heavy metal energy. We'd got to rebrand. This nuclear thing kind of went off the rails. But that one can would have enough energy to power you and your entire family for your entire lifetime. That's how much energy is in there. But, stuff is radioactive and dangerous and messy, and we don't know what to do with the waste, so we've been kind of saving it for our grandkids in these casks, and maybe they'll figure out, how to make Legos out of it or something. We invented this thing, a new type of nuclear reactor that's powered by nuclear waste. What a lot of people don't realize is today's reactors, they were all designed before we were born with pencils and slide rules, right? The other thing people don't realize is that they're only 0.7% efficient. Today's reactors, the fuel cycle allows us to get 0.7% of the energy out of that uranium. The rest is sitting there in a stockpile we call waste, right? Our reactors can get the rest of that energy out. This is a stockpile in the US. 700,000 metric tons of depleted uranium sitting on the surface of the Earth, saving it for our grandkids. It's left over from making reactors, it's left over from making bombs, right? We have so much energy in this one stockpile, we could power the entire planet, including growth, for the next 1,000 years. And we don't even need to mine uranium. That's what's possible. Here's what happened. We told ourselves the wrong story. We conflated nuclear reactors with nuclear bombs. We got mushroom clouds in our imagination, and we outlawed them before we understood them. We made the wrong choice, okay? And what that means, if we had built nuclear reactors since the 80s, you never would have heard of global warming. That's what's possible. We made the wrong choice because humans are story-powered creatures, and we got the wrong story, and we risk doing it again. Think about recycling. We've been doing recycling our whole lives at this point. We've been thinking that we're helping save the planet, sorting out our cardboard and our plastic bottles, recycling the cheapest crap on Earth. and it's not working. We're burning more coal to recycle plastic than if we just made fresh plastic. It's disappointing, it's placating us, but we need to learn to do some arithmetic and add up. Does this solution match the scale of the problem, right? And I think we're letting ourselves down. You know, we have these possibilities. We can do better, but we have to try. You guys have seen this picture. It's a tokamak. It's been a fantasy for physicists our whole lives. Beyond that, we've been imagining, what if we could make energy the way the sun makes energy in the first place, right? Arguably, I already told you, all the energy in the world comes from the sun. Guess what? That means all of the energy in the world came from fusion. So what if we could make fusion right here? And we've been imagining this for a long time, and we haven't been able to do it. And the reason is, there's kind of two, I kind of organize inventions into two piles. Needs a miracle, doesn't need a miracle. And fusion has clearly been in the needs a miracle side for our whole lives. But that changed a couple years ago. A couple years ago, a team out of MIT published 7 papers showing exactly how they can make a fusion reactor with no new science. This is Commonwealth fusion. And the reason they could do it now and they couldn't do it before is because of a breakthrough in superconductors, not a breakthrough in fusion. The superconductor allows them to make the world's most powerful magnet, and they've already proven that. A tokamak like this is a whole series of those magnets, and use them to try and float the fusion, the plasma, in a magnetic field. It sounds kind of wild, and it is. But no new science is needed. I think it's still really hard, right? Hopefully in a few years, they'll build the first fusion reactor that can prove this works. Probably another decade to get to commercial reactors after that, and that's kind of the best case scenario. A lot of hard engineering problems, but if it works, you'll be able to power you and your whole family for the rest of your life off of 1 glass of seawater. That's what's possible. That's another way. Second way, we could 10x global energy production. You know, these things are possible, and I think it's important to understand, we think we live in a world full of technology, and it's not really true. We live in a world full of software, right? Think about the tech industry's big wins. They disrupted the taxi industry. Pretty cool, right? What about disrupting Aramco? I don't think Silicon Valley is getting around to it. We have to do these things, and we're not going to do them just making more software and iPhone apps. You can't expect SaaS holes to save the world. So we have to do these things. But look, we have a lot going for us, right? If you're working on energy projects, here's something that you have that they don't. Product market fit. What does that mean? Will somebody pay for the thing you're making? Have you ever seen anybody ever advertise gas for your car? Oil companies have never once had to advertise gas to get people to buy it, right? There is an unlimited market for energy. It is the biggest market in the world. It is something like $15 trillion a year. It's like 20% of global GDP is energy, okay? That's pretty awesome. So if you're working on energy, you don't have that problem. You might have some technical risk building these things, but we can actually make these things happen. A lot of money is invested in making energy. I'm just trying to help everybody see things the way I do, and then you can kick me off stage and out of the country if you want. But we have to be honest about the problems. Solar panels, which we all love, suck for a couple of big reasons. Clouds and nighttime, okay? The relentless onslaught of night is fucking up our solar panels every single day. The installed base of solar capacity, we're just using Germany. When I was a kid, Germans were the smartest people in the world. I thought they were amazing. And then they shut down their nuclear reactors. Now I think French people are the smartest people in the world. What are the odds of that? Anyway, something changed. Anyway, so sorry. Like I said, you get to kick me out. And I'm just running on Red Bull, so forgive me. Anyway, installed base in Germany is the orange line. That's how much, when you see solar people show up and say, look how much amazing solar capacity we've deployed. Yeah, that's the orange line. Well, how much energy are we getting out of it? The blue is the actual kind of daily numbers added up. This dark blue line at the bottom is the capacity factor. That's how much of the capacity we're actually getting. Okay? Well, why does it go up and down? Well, it goes up and down seasonally, because in the winter, the sun don't shine in Germany. All right? Fine. What are we going to do about it? Anybody know the answer? Miraculous, magical battery packs, right? Where are they? I don't think we have grid scale batteries. We need a breakthrough. I would love to have it, but let's be honest, we don't have grid scale storage, and they don't show the cost of that in their projections, right? So I think we're being a little disingenuous about exactly how renewable we are. You know what we do now? Every time we deploy a solar farm, we got to grow capacity for coal or natural gas to fill in the gap, right? Let's be honest about it. Let's start from that understanding and figure out how we're going to solve the problem knowing these things. Okay, enough preaching, sorry. So the solar panels, turns out there's a hack for the clouds and the nighttime. Put them in space. It looks like the space is just nighttime. It's not. It's actually sunny all the time in space. So if you put the solar panels in space, they get sun 24/7. They get sun 365 days a year. They actually get 8 times as much energy. And then you can beam it down to Earth using radio waves. And the radio waves go right through clouds. They go right through night. The radio waves work in a snowstorm. And you can beam it to every city on Earth. You can beam it to the poles or the center of Africa. You can beam it wherever you want, all right? Not only that, you don't need storage, and you don't need transmission lines. So there's a third way we can 10x global energy production. Now the question is not, could we do it? All those things will work. The question is whether we're going to take another century to do it, or maybe we could do it in decades, right? So I know I'm being a little antagonistic, and that's okay. I promise I'm nicer than I seem, and we're going to take some questions. But first, I want to show you something. Because I know you think I'm full of shit, I brought the founder of the company making the space solar system. This is John Bucknell. John, you want to come here? And John brought a demo. Nobody does demos anymore because all they have is iPhone apps. So the most suspicious part of space solar is, what's this power beaming thing? Well, John solved it. His company solved it.
So if you know that you need to move energy 35,000 kilometers to the ground, you're going to have to get it pretty narrow. We're using 10 gigahertz microwaves. Your microwave oven's about 2.5. This one's 10. I've brought 1% of the first technology demonstrator we built and demonstrated early this March. And this is a system that is actually operating at scaled orbital distance. So I'm going to turn this on here. And Pablos is going to stand, well, why don't we start here?
Okay.
To start with. And if you can see it, you got to move it around. So it's a very tight beam, and it should be working. Let me just
This is why nobody does demos.
This is why nobody does demos.
Okay, so are we on?
Now we.
Okay, there we go. We're lit
now
up.
we're on. Okay.
So you guys probably can't see from this angle.
Yeah, but the cameras can.
Cameras can.
This distance for this aperture, we call the far field distance. This is the distance past when radio waves and light waves don't focus anymore. So you have to get that distance in order to get it to the ground. This is orbital distance. This is 35,000 kilometers when you scale up to the size of transmitters we need to do. However, the fun thing is we talked about microwaves, they're a long wavelength. They're about 3 centimeters at 10 gigahertz. This represents clouds that block the sun. And you can stick that right in between. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. And in fact, if other satellites fly through the sky, or even your jet airplane, and you're sitting inside of it, and you happen to be made of metal, those microwaves bounce right off because they're electromagnetic. But once you have the ability to move microwaves long distances, you can go really long distances. So we've got another mark all the way at the other end of the stage. And that, my friends, is from the orbit of the Earth
Where's the other
all
mark?
the way to the moon. To the moon. This is how far you can move microwaves. So if you build a space-based solar power system, and you want to deliver energy to a system or economy, including all of us on the ground, you have to have the wireless power transfer solved. So this is the first time we've shown this publicly, but this is the underpinning technology to make space-based solar power work, and it is using today's tech, and we're hoping to have one in orbit in 3 years. So,
John, we're gonna open up for questions in a minute,
Yeah,
but John,
please.
will you just talk about safety? I'm gonna stand in front of the beam.
yeah.
No.
So microwaves are photons. They're just like the light from the lights overhead today. The intensity of any energy source is what you're concerned about if you're worried about safety. This system right here is about 16% of sunlight. I would argue it's really hard to just feel it all by itself, but the systems we're going to put up in space are about half of sunlight ever, and generally much, much less than that. So there's nothing that's going to hurt you here. If you can stand going outside in the sun because your thermoregulatory response of your body is able to reject heat, right? If you go out and you're sunning yourself on the beach, you're absorbing sunlight all the time, and your body never gets above 35°C. So this is all just adding heat to you. And because we're keeping the intensity low, it's just like being outside in the sunlight. And in fact, if you live here and you're outside in the wintertime, it's a lot nicer than you would otherwise, but you would have to be standing inside the receiver. So it's completely and totally safe, and we're actually complying with all FCC regulations in the US and ITU internationally for the intensity of the microwave. So these systems can be deployed quickly and easily.
Hey, thank you so much.
Thanks
That is
much.
awesome. John's going to be on the panel. Yeah. John will be on the panel that's up next. I got a few minutes if anybody has any questions. I promise I'm nicer than I seem. It's just the jet lag talking here. And then we'll bring up everyone else. Anyone? Okay. Yeah. She has a mic for you. Hold on one second.
Thanks. Hi, I guess just two questions relating to the microwaves.
Yeah.
And so at what sort of capacity build would this maybe become more economical? Because I imagine it's a lot
There's
of
only one
money
number
up
that
front.
matters, which is launch cost.
Okay.
And launch cost, ironically, has crashed. So in space shuttle days, we were at $20,000 to $40,000 a kilogram. SpaceX got that down at this point to about $1,800, which is incredible, uncontested in the private space launch market. This gets irresistibly cost-effective, I mean, cheaper than anything else on Earth at about $200 or $300 a kilogram. The SpaceX target for Starship is 10. So this decade, doing space solar will become the lowest cost baseload energy anywhere on Earth. Yeah.
And just follow up on the potential losses from the microwave. Are there any?
Yeah, so the losses, I mean, it's the wrong question because I'm so sorry. It's called space for a reason. You just put up more panels. But the losses are actually way less than you'd think. And I'll let John answer that on the panel because it's actually not that bad. You only really get losses in the atmosphere. You don't get them in space. And so it's not so bad. But I'll let him answer that so you get a more accurate answer. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. Oh, you got someone who can, we should get a mic. We'll get a mic to you next. Yeah. You got a mic over here next. Yeah.
Hi, I was wondering what, if any, other waste products from the nuclear waste reactor?
Oh, sorry, can you ask that again? What's the question?
The nuclear waste reactor, does that have waste products of its own?
Yeah, so what happens is you take the depleted uranium. All the uranium on Earth has been decaying since before before there were humans. And so it doesn't actually fission. So we have to enrich it. So to make bombs and reactors, we actually have this complicated enrichment process to make it fissionable. What's cool about the traveling wave reactor, the one I showed you, is that it can actually enrich and burn its own fuel. And so in one pass, it'll get about 20% of the energy out in the design that we made. So, or that TerraPower has now. So what happens then is you have further depleted uranium. And if it were the economical thing to do, you could dig it up and run it again and reclad that fuel and run it again and get more energy out. But probably for at least a long time, you won't need to do that because there's a lot of depleted uranium laying around. Yeah, yeah. Just so it's clear, that reactor, they're called Gen 4 reactors. They are modern reactors that are safe, that are efficient, they don't have a proliferation problem. Like, these are incredible, and we're not allowed to build them. We started that company in 2007. We're still not allowed to build that reactor. The US government still has no way, apparently, of certifying any new reactor technology. So only reactors that you can build are old ones. So that's where we're at in the world. Yeah. There's a question over here, and then one back there. Yeah, two over here, yeah.
Hi, it was a question about the microwaves. How much energy can actually be transmitted using it?
Well, how much, is basically limited by how much energy you're willing to put in the beam. So in John's system, they expect it to be half as much energy as sunshine. And that's just a way of making it extra safe, right? And so with that, it means you end up with a big antenna on the ground to receive the energy. And the more energy you want to receive, the more antennas or the bigger the antennas, or the more arrays you have aimed at the antenna. And so it's actually possible, but the whole point is to do gigawatts to a given receiver so you could power a city. I don't know if John's there yet, but I want to do terawatts. So that's how I think about it.
And could you use the same technology to transfer between cities as well?
Yeah, except the problem is the Earth isn't fucking flat. If it was flat, it'd be so easy, but it's not. So you can't get line of sight between cities. So you'd end up having to, if you have two cities that happen to have mountains, then I suppose, but it's not really the most practical thing to do.
Thank you.
Yeah. John's doing that on the moon, though. The moon is also not flat in spite of how it looks. So they can only do a little ways, but it's still helpful since there's not a lot of infrastructure there yet. Yeah.
How do you get young kids to get engaged with all these new ideas and things? Because the schooling system at the moment is all historic. It's not focusing on the future.
Yeah.
The stuff you're talking about kind of sounds like science fiction to most laymen.
Yeah.
How do you make this part of the mainstream?
I don't know, but I have one answer that gives me some sense of confidence. A lot of technologies, it's really hard to bring them to life in a generation or two, but it's really easy in 2 or 3 or 4 generations. And so a good example of that is like the guys who first invented the wheel, we just killed them off. Those fucking wheel guys, assassinate them, done. And for a couple of generations, we killed all the wheel guys, and then kids are like, fuck you, Dad, wheels are cool. And so now we have wheels. And that's kind of the trajectory that a lot of technologies take. It's hard to change the minds of all the old farts, but the kids grow up. My daughter doesn't know about Chernobyl. She doesn't know about mushroom clouds. She's going to be like excited about nuclear reactors. And I think that's awesome. And probably your kids too. So the next generation the technologies always win in the long run. If we invent them, we develop them, they're cost effective, they're good, and they're useful, they always win. We can screw it up for a couple of generations, we can slow it down, but the technologies, if they're good, humans always adopt them. And so in the long run, that's how it goes. The question is whether we can get smart enough and get good enough at making decisions, especially in groups. I know it's odd, hard to believe, but if we could get good at making decisions, we can make these things happen faster. And that's really what I think it's about. So, yeah. You got a couple questions over here, and then I'll run for my life. Yeah.
What's the future of small modular reactors?
Small modular reactors are cool for one good reason, which is that you can make them in a factory like Toyota's instead of making them bespoke, kind of like Ferraris, right? All of the reactors in the world today, they have no interchangeable parts. Everyone has its own engineering team. They're all like art projects. It's like a Burning Man project with PhDs. I mean, it's kind of crazy. So small modular reactors can solve that problem because you can make them in a factory. But I think they suck for the reason that they don't need to be small. We don't need small reactors. We need a lot of big reactors. And you know, a lot of the cost of a reactor isn't the core, it's all the crap around it and all the lawyers you got to pay off and all that stuff. So it's mostly legal costs. So anyway, don't get me started, sorry. But so it's a good hack for now because it makes people feel comfortable because they like the word small. And, you know, that's great. And we did get one approved in the US to an extent called, somebody tell me, what's it called? NuScale. The NuScale reactor in the US has finally gotten approved to start kind of building that thing. So we're making some progress. But it's not a, other than being small and modular, it's not a specifically modern design. I'm not that excited about it. No offense. Glad NuScale's trying. 100 other people should try, and I'm excited about it, but we need big reactors, and a lot of them. So, yeah. And one, I think like I could take one last question maybe here. Yeah.
Hello. It's all fascinating information, but as we all know, hardware is hard. But also the appetite from the investor perspective is also very hard in this climate. How do you suggest we bridge that funding gap from pilot to scale up? And where is the investor appetite? Because there seems to be a gap in between. Do you have any ideas on that?
I get it. No, you're totally right, except that hardware is hard, but that's because all the easy shit's been done, okay? The only important stuff left to do is the hard stuff. So we need to do it. That's one thing. Second, hardware is not as hard as it sounds. Right? Like, you know, some things are hard, but here's the truth. The reason software is so easy is because of rapid iteration. It's so cheap to just like make an app, ship it, see if people click on it, whatever. Right? You can sort of A/B test your way to success. And that rapid iteration is what made software so powerful. It's why we all got drunk on software, and that's why we don't do anything except Snapchat anymore. Okay. If you're doing a hypersonic jet or a rocket or a nuclear reactor or a Tesla, these days, you design it in software, you test it in software, you crash it in software, you do it thousands of times until you know which design is going to work the best, and you build one. So we're not iterating in hardware like we were even 10 years ago. And that is opening up the potential to take on a lot of these things. So that's one thing. We have that. In the US, we also have tailwinds from the infrastructure bills, so investing in these areas can be attractive. But I think the one VCs in particular miss is that we don't do CDE rounds for these kinds of companies, right? The day we get the thing working and there's no more technical risk, we're on project financing, we're on debt financing, we're building power plants. Like John's gonna need money to build the first array and prove that it works, put that thing in space. But the day he deploys it and he's selling power and making money from the biggest market in the world, then it's no more venture money, right? So you're going to get less dilution. I think the opportunities are extraordinary in this area, and that's partly because I'm a deep tech VC, but yeah. Okay, yeah.
Sorry, just to follow up on that, how do you, I understand you're talking about the venture and scale up, and then you get the off-take agreements to power it.
Sure.
But institutional capital, which is, we're talking billions of dollars in investment here, they need to see a complete de-risking of the project to that, but the appetite doesn't seem to be there. They want to be completely de-risked before they'll invest.
I mean, look, I
do
think
we not need a change in our approach to risk here?
No, I'm not expecting to change their minds, but I am expecting to change the minds of venture. Like, we think we have a big venture capital industry. We have a big software capital industry. The rug's been yanked out from under the sassholes. It's time, if they want to keep their jobs, to actually do some venture, right? Like, where's the Shackleton in Zoom or Slack, okay? Like, let's go do some venture. And so I think we can make these things quite attractive, and the deep tech sector in venture is sizable. It has been growing. I try to do the earliest stage stuff, right? Because that is the real funding gap, is that nobody can invest at the beginning, so I do that. But a lot of these folks, I mean, a lot of people are excited about backing John from the venture community. So I don't think there's going to be a big problem getting him through. You know, it doesn't take him that much money, as an example, to get to the point where that first array is up. So anyway, I'm going to get off stage. Thanks so much. I will stick around as long as I can or until Red Bull wears off. And I promise I'll be nice, and I'd love to hear about what you guys are working on. Thank you.
Thank you, Pablo, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.